All right, good afternoon, everybody. Link in the description. So, well, I'm not going to talk about USAA, but this is more of a general take on the whole customer service. Now, obviously, according to Aaron Clary, I guess USA improved the customer service. And, okay, cool, whatever. I have USA myself. But anyhow, this is not about USA. What this is about is how the art of customer service is lost, in today's world. Everything's all fucking automated, and use AI and all that shit. And I'll agree with Mr. Clay, on certain things like you know payments, like doing something either on the phone or by a computer. That's how I make my car payment. You know, fucking would I get a job so I can keep doing that? But anyhow, you get the point is, I log on to Hyundai Financial, click pay the amount that they ask for, submit, and then go about my business. So that I'm okay with it. It's streamlined, um, and obviously a lot of sites nowadays, eBay. I'm a fucking eBay fanatic. Due to getting parts for my tracker, and they store your information. So you just hit submit and just use the information they have on file. Because again, that streamlines everything. But where it can be an issue is where you run into a problem with something, and they use robots and they just keep bouncing back and forth, and you keep saying representative, and it says, I don't understand your command. Please choose from that. Please try to call again later. And it won't let you get to a fucking person. And there's those times where you actually need a person to look at what the issue is. Case in point, Verizon, that's my cell phone carrier. They don't even have people pick up the phone. I have an issue, and what do? They fucking first do automated, and then they send you to a person who chats. And you got to do things bouncing from one thing to the next, and sometimes you may not be able to go back to that site that you were on and click on this, and it's just like, what the fuck? Just have somebody pick up the phone, and you explain your problem. What's going on my phone, what's going on my account. I'm going to use that as an example because I went through this, and that they can take a look. And the issue I'm talking about was actually something specific. I bought the wrong type of card for my phone, and I tried to put it on my phone where you enter in the code. Because I was just fucking old school like that, and it wouldn't register. I guess the one I got was, I think, like Total by Verizon or whatever it was. Rather than the prepay. I mean, now I just fucking do it straight from my banking account when I log online. Click pay, and even then, like bounce around and click on the right fucking thing. Otherwise, I'll say payment. I'm just like, what the fuck? At least if you're gonna fucking use technology, just make it easy for people to use. Isn't that the point of technology? Is to make it easier for people to use? But obviously, that's not always the case. Sometimes, you're going to run into those times where you just need a person on the phone. Now, obviously, that might not work so well, when you're trying to explain a problem to, your mechanic or whatever. My car's doing this and that. Or you try to, explain to the mechanic, and, and some of them, sometimes they might be able to give you the answer, if they've heard it before, But, otherwise, it's almost like there was one channel I used to watch, Steve Pitbull. I got to see what he's doing with his videos. You know, one of his big things was Jesus doesn't work here. You know, so how the hell can somebody diagnose something if they're not there to see it? You know, you might as well just go to a fucking forum. Case in point, you know, I'm a member of you know, two automotive forums. You know, Hyundai because I have the Santa Cruz, and Suzuki forums because I have the Tracker, which is a rebadged Suzuki Sidekick. So, you know, and again, you know, they can't really diagnose stuff because they're not there. They're not there seeing what I'm seeing. You know, and that's just you know, for something like that, you know, yeah, they need to actually see what's going on face to face. But you know, for everything else, like you have a problem with your account, you know, you call customer service, and they put in and they try to resolve the account, whatever it may be. You know, so yeah, you know, I think because of AI, a lot of those jobs are getting done away with because it costs less money to use fucking algorithms than it does to pay somebody to just sit in a fucking chair and answer the phone, go into the screen, and you know, look at your account. Yeah, yeah, account 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, okay, yeah, I see the problem. All right, you know, so yeah, and it's just crazy how much we rely on technology to do the things that we want to do, and that's not going to work everywhere. You know, that's not going to work for each and every little thing. You know, customer service, um, setting up doctor's appointments. Oh, actually, let me rephrase that. Um, a lot of doctors use, you know, platforms where you can do it that way. You know, so I guess that's in one way of, you know, streamlining instead of just having to call a doctor's office. You know, or for example, you know, booking an appointment, you know, for the routine stuff for my Santa Cruz, you know, I can actually do that online. You know, book for this day, that service, and be done with it. And you know, while I'm not gonna talk too much about, you know, having to do that or the warranty, that's another video in of itself. You know, so there's certain things where, you know, today, you know, technology and automated systems, you know, can streamline things for you. You know, you can set up appointments. You know, case in point, another streamlined version is direct deposit. You know the money's going to be there. You know, you check, you know, check your account and you see, let's just say $500, you know, of your pay. Okay, that's streamlining something. You know, they have your bank account, they go boom, it's right there. You know, instead of having to get a paper check and fucking rush into the bank to deposit it, you know, and then having to wait like, you know, a day or two for it to clear. You know. Anyhow, that's just my rant on, you know, how sometimes you just need a human. I'll talk to you.